What if the secret to slowing down aging has been sitting in your kitchen cupboard this entire time? Not a $200 nootropic, not a prescription drug, not some exotic extract flown in from the Himalayas. Just baking soda, the same white powder you use for cookies. And what scientists discovered about it, specifically about what it does to your immune system, is going to genuinely surprise you. Stay with me, because the mechanism here is unlike anything most people have heard before. The aging theory, chronic systemic inflammation. Right now, the dominant scientific theory of aging centers on a concept called chronic systemic inflammation. Here's what that actually means and why it matters. As we age, certain cells in our bodies stop dividing and stop performing their normal functions, but they don't die either. They enter a zombie-like state called cellular senescence. These senescent cells accumulate over time through genetic programming, environmental damage, or simple biological wear and tear. And here's what makes them genuinely dangerous. They don't just sit there doing nothing. They actively secrete a cocktail of toxic proteins called the SASP, or senescence-associated secretory phenotype, that damages neighboring healthy cells, forcing them into senescence as well. It's a slow biological chain reaction. The immune response, how macrophages drive inflammation. Right now, your immune system detects this accumulation. Cells called monocytes continuously patrol your bloodstream, moving through vessels hunting for threats and signs of damage in every organ and tissue. When monocytes exit the bloodstream and enter tissues, they transform into macrophages, long-lived immune sentinels that are found literally everywhere in the body, in your liver, your spleen, the walls of your arteries, your brain, where they're called microglia, your skin, and your gut. Wherever your immune system operates, macrophages are already there, waiting. When macrophages find senescent cells, they activate, and they start releasing chemical alarm signals called interleukins. The three most destructive pro-inflammatory ones are TNF-α, tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-1 beta, and interleukin-6. These are the main generals of chronic inflammation. These signals act like a military distress flare. They recruit more immune cells to the area. Neutrophil leukocytes rush in, T lymphocytes arrive. They begin releasing factors that destroy cells. The senescent cells finally die under this assault, but their death releases even more inflammatory molecules, which attract even more macrophages to the site, which produce even more cytokines, which cause even more tissue damage, and so on, endlessly. This is the vicious cycle of chronic systemic inflammation. Your own body attacking your own tissues. Your own tissues releasing breakdown products that provoke more inflammation, silently, at low grade, continuously, for years and decades. Diseases driven by chronic inflammation. This cycle drives virtually every major disease associated with aging. Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, neurodegeneration fueled by chronic brain inflammation. Cancer. Chronic inflammation creates conditions where tumor cells thrive and escape immune surveillance. Atherosclerosis and aneurysms, inflammatory damage to arterial walls, leading to plaque buildup and structural weakening. Kidney decline, progressive loss of filtration function driven by chronic inflammation. Arthritis and arthrosis, immune cells destroying joint cartilage, accelerated by persistent inflammation. Autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and more, all linked to uncontrolled immune activity. T regulatory cells, the brake system. Your body does have a countermeasure. T-reg cells, specialized lymphocytes whose entire biological job is to pump the brakes on excessive immune responses. They prevent the immune system from spiraling into a destructive loop. But here's the cruel irony at the heart of aging. Chronic systemic inflammation actively suppresses T-regulatory cell function. When Treg function weakens, the immune system loses its governor, and it begins attacking tissues it previously tolerated. This is how allergies worsen and autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and various neurological autoimmune conditions develop or flare. Current medical approaches. On the lifestyle side, anti-inflammatory diets, reducing simple carbohydrates which directly fuel inflammatory pathways, fighting visceral fat, the fat packed around your internal organs, densely loaded with macrophages that chronically secrete pro-inflammatory cytokines. On the pharmaceutical side, anti-TNF-alpha biologics, widely used for rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, and ankylosing spondylitis, and interleukin blockers, medications that specifically suppress IL-1 beta and IL-6. Effective but expensive, injectable, and carry real risks, including immunosuppression. The 2018 landmark study. But it turns out you may be able to significantly reduce pro-inflammatory cytokines with something that costs almost nothing. In 2018, a study published in the Journal of Immunology showed that drinking just 2 grams of baking soda dissolved in water each day produced measurable, significant anti-inflammatory effects. The study documented reduced inflammatory activity in macrophages and increased T regulatory cell activity. The numbers were concrete. TNF-alpha decreased, interleukin-6 decreased, interleukin-1 beta decreased, T regulatory cell activity increased. These are the exact same molecular targets that $30,000 per year biological drugs are specifically engineered to suppress.
The mechanism, how it actually works. When you drink baking soda, it hits your stomach acid and a simple chemical reaction occurs. NaHCO3 plus HCl yields NaCl plus CO2 plus H2O. Sodium bicarbonate plus hydrochloric acid yields table salt, carbon dioxide gas, and water. Here's something critical. 2 grams of baking soda cannot shift your blood's pH. That's a wellness myth. To meaningfully alter blood pH, you'd need to consume approximately 16 to 20 grams or more. 2 grams is not about alkalizing your body. That concept has no scientific basis here. What actually happens, the baking soda binds free hydrogen ions, H+, in the stomach. Hydrogen ions carry a positive charge. When they are neutralized, the stomach wall cells, which just released those H+ ions, now carry a net negative charge. The stomach wall becomes electrically polarized. Now here's the genuinely novel discovery of the 2018 study. The outer surface of the stomach, like all internal organs, is covered by a thin membrane lined with cells called mesothelial cells. It was always assumed these were passive structural cells. The study showed they are not passive at all. They can conduct electrical signals, propagating polarization waves from cell to cell, almost exactly like neurons. This was an entirely new biological discovery. The polarization signal travels from the stomach's mesothelial cells across to the cells of the spleen's outer capsule. The capsule transmits the signal inward to the immune cells inside, the macrophages and T regulatory cells. The result? Macrophages switch from their pro-inflammatory M1 phenotype to their anti-inflammatory M2 phenotype, literally changing which team they're on. And T regulatory cells activate and expand, suppressing the runaway inflammation that was causing so much damage throughout the body. The protocol. The method: dissolve 2 grams of baking soda, approximately half a teaspoon, in 250 milliliters of water. Drink it slowly, not in one gulp, because the CO2 released by the reaction can cause significant bloating and discomfort if consumed too quickly. Taking it on an empty stomach makes logical sense. There's already gastric acid present, no food to buffer the reaction, and the mesothelial signaling mechanism is activated more quickly and completely. Summary: what you actually get. 2 grams of baking soda per day may provide measurable reduction in chronic systemic inflammation, a macrophage shift from tissue-destroying M1 to tissue-repairing M2, stronger T regulatory cell activity, reduced conditions for autoimmune flares, and potentially a meaningful slowdown of the molecular drivers of biological aging. At worst, mild stomach discomfort if you drink it too fast. Closing. The recipe:
half a teaspoon of baking soda, a glass of water, drunk slowly before breakfast. And what excites scientists most is that this study opened an entirely new field of research into mesothelial cells as a body-wide electrical communication network, a biological signaling system hiding in plain sight that nobody previously knew existed. If you want more of the real science of slowing aging, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Thank you for watching, and here's to your good health. Goodbye.